Trade a bishop and put your pawns on dark squares. That's the basic Nimzo Indian strategy. But this opening goes way beyond its original idea. For example, there is this move, which seems to break everything the Nimzo Indian stands for. If black takes on c3, the remaining bishop won't be happy, stuck behind its own light square pawns. And that d pawn also lets white easily undouble. So why would black play d5 at all? In this video we'll break down the surprising logic behind it. First rule of the Nimzo Indian: no pawn goes to the 5th rank until it's really needed. That means the center has to be controlled by pieces, especially the e4 square. That's why b6 and after bishop d3, bishop b7. Then both sides castle, and now black has to choose a middle game plan. One path is c5, which usually leads to the IQP structure. The other is bishop takes c3, knight e4, and f5. Both of these are fine, but if you want something more subtle, there is this d5 move. This looks a lot like Queen's Gambit, except black's bishop is misplaced on b4. If black captures on c3, it's pointless. White just undoubles their pawns and keeps the bishop here. But the trade-off is that white's dark square bishop isn't on g5 or f4 like in the Queen's Gambit. It's stuck behind its own pawn. So my thinking has always been pull the bishop back and black's problem is solved, while white's bishop is still trapped behind e3. And in fact, theory supports this idea. After the move a3, the best is bishop d6. Now before we dive into concrete plans, take a look at this black setup. The knight is heading for d7, and the structure is basically the same one white uses in the Call-It Secreted system. So if you already play the Call-It Secreted, this fits perfectly. Now white's main response is to take on d5, followed by b4, which we will get to in a moment. But first I want to show you what happens if white keeps the pawn on c4. Let's say b4 is played. Black takes on c4 with the intention of going for the e5 pawn break. Of course, first we need our knight on d7. It's worth mentioning how advantageous it is to play a5 to provoke b5, because that square is often used by white's knight to harass our important bishop. After b5, we can either slow down with queen e7 or strike immediately with e5. In the game between Boris Spassky and Mikhail Tal, white played a4, then queen e7, h3, rook a d8, queen e2, and rook f e8. The idea is to push e4, then bring the d7 knight via f8 to g6, and start an attack on the king's side. You'll notice that this knight maneuver is quite common in this variation. And we can see the same plan applied even when white plays b3. First knight bd7, then a6 to stop knight b5, and finally the same d takes c4, followed by e5. After d5, knight c5, bishop c2, bishop c8, knight e2, and bishop d7, there is an outpost on c5 and I'd take black any day. Now you know the reason white should take on d5 in this position. Black recaptures and then comes b4. White wants to fix their dark square bishop problem with queen b3, a4, b5, and finally bishop a3 to trade bishops. If this plan works, white not only solves their main issue, but also forces black to give up their key attacking piece, the same one that helps defend the weak c7 pawn. Let's see how black reacts. First, knight b d7. White plays queen b3, preparing a4. Now a6. You already know one reason for this move, but there is more to it. White had to be careful here, but in the game they slipped badly with bishop b2. That bishop belongs on a3 to trade off black's bishop on d6. On b2 it achieves nothing, just wasted time. At this point black kept their cards hidden with queen e7, a move that's always handy and in this case makes it tougher for white to push a4. White could try rook fb1, but that awkward bishop on b2 keeps blocking the way. So they played rook fd1. And only then did black reveal the whole idea behind a6, by advancing b5. On the surface, the pawn structure seems damaged. In reality, though, b5 lays claim to a strong c4 outpost, reachable in just 2 moves. While the knight on b6 takes care of d5, one of the few soft spots in black's position. That's why white should do everything possible to stop a b5 before it's too late. The right move here is a4. It accomplishes 2 things. It prepares bishop a3 and b5 to trade bishops, and it shuts down black's b5 plan. Black answers with queen e7. Now if white goes for bishop a3, they're not actually ready to push b5 yet. Black just trades on a3 and then takes on b5, leaving white with a damaged pawn structure. For that reason, instead of bishop a3, white might play rook b1. Besides defending the pawn, the idea is that after b5 the rook is no longer hanging on the a file. Now black calmly plays rook fe8, freeing the f8 square for the knight. White proceeds with b5. As a kid I used to play a5 immediately. Mistake. Capturing is better. After a takes b, black keeps the bishop on d6 and controls a3. The whole setup is solid except of the d5 pawn. The plan is to start an initiative on the king's side. I usually do it with knight f8 to g6 as we've seen. But here's a little shortcut you'll want to remember. Knight e4. The trick is that after knight takes d5, bishop takes d5 and queen takes d5, there is a fork on c3. And if white does not take the pawn and plays h3, we simply take on c3 and bring the other knight into action via f6 and e4. If it gets captured, pawn takes, knight e2, bishop d5, and only black can be better here. Let's assume the shortcut isn't available and we play knight f8. White goes bishop b2, and in the game we are following, black played a curious queen d7. So that after even more curious king h1, knight g6, rook bc1 and queen g4, black's attack is starting to take shape. Okay, we had queen d1, bishop c8, knight e2, and now black can just play knight h4. Look at all these black pieces around the white king. After trading on h4, computer suggests the following line: g3, queen h6, knight g1, knight g4, knight f3, queen h3, then rook e6 and rook h6. White has absolutely no way out. So that's the power of this d5 setup in the Nimzo Indian. Officially it's called Schlechter Defense, but you can also just think of it as a call it Zuckertut reversed. Either way, give it a try and let me know how it goes.